Hello and welcome to the Religious Studies A-Level PowerPoint. My name is Miss Hayden, and can I just apologise in advance? I'm rubbish at doing recordings like this. I will say 1,000 times and be really irritating, so I can only apologise. I will do my best. So, if you choose to do RS A-Level in Christleton, you will probably have myself teaching you for half of the lessons in the lower six with Miss Binion normally, and then in the upper six again you're stuck with me, sorry folks, and the other half of the lessons you'd have with Mrs. Lister normally. I can't guarantee that obviously, but that's what we normally do. So in this school we've chosen to study the EDUCAS specification, and we do 3 different components with that, and there's 3 exam papers at the end, 1 in philosophy, 1 in ethics, and 1 in religion, for which we've chosen to do Christianity as the religion because that's the one we knew most about. We are very proud of how many different careers RS can actually be for. There's loads, a whole host of different careers and university courses that our students have gone on to do in the past. I've just picked out 3 very obvious ones, but there are many more. So medicine, we've had so many students, I've lost count over the years, go on to study medicine after doing RS. So, for example, Mrs. Lister's own daughter, Abby, she did RS A-Level, and she found having done RS was a real advantage when she went to her university interview to study medicine, because about half an hour of that interview she was being asked medical ethics questions, and obviously because she'd studied those very issues in RS gave her a huge advantage over other students that had not had that RS background. Also, a very, very common subject that our students go on to study at university is law. My own son did RS A-Level, and then when he went to apply to do law at Sheffield is where he got in. He found it helpful on his UCAS form to mention stuff from his RS course, and I've had students email me in the past who've gone on to study law saying that they've reproduced an RS essay they did for me for their law course because it had almost exactly the same title. So it's very useful because of what we do to do with crime and punishment in particular. And journalism, we had a student very recently go on to study journalism, and the reason it helps with that is because so many of the topics that we discuss as part of the course are things that are currently in the news. So it's particularly helpful obviously to have studied a subject. Gives you the advantage of writing about something in a much more knowledgeable and impressive way if you go on to work as a journalist. So many different careers it can be helpful for, but actually I think it's very early, isn't it? It's very early now to know for sure what career you want to go on to do, and you may well change your mind. One of the most important things will be that you get the best possible grades in your A-Levels, and that's actually probably the most important thing that universities will consider when they are deciding whether to offer you a place. I think I can say with confidence that you will have every chance of getting an excellent grade if you choose to study RS, because our results have always been outstanding. So the very first year of the new specification in this subject was 2018. So these are some of our students from that year. We always go out on an end of course curry night at the end to celebrate getting through the 2 years of A-Level, and these are some of those students, and they did brilliantly in the first ever year of this course. 62% of them got between an A* and a B, and all of them, nobody got below a D. And then in the second year, 2019, again the curry night picture, and again we had 64% getting between an A* and a B, and all our students getting at the very least a D grade. And then this year, I particularly wanted to pick out the A Star to A's this year, which was 50% of our students, which was absolutely brilliant because A levels are very hard. And in actual fact, in all 3 years since this specification started now, all our students have achieved at least a D grade, which again at A level, even an E is a pass at A level, so that's very good. And our 3-year trend continues upwards. So in 2020 for A Star to B, it was 67%. So results don't really lie over a 3-year trend. And in fact, RS has been a top performing department for well over a decade. But hopefully you've had the results from other subjects you're considering doing. Hopefully they've given you their 3-year trend as well. So you can, hopefully you'd be safe in safe hands, whichever subjects you choose. But we do have a particularly good record in RS of students well outperforming their target grades, for example. But please don't think that we get such excellent results because RS is easy. It is not. You will have to work your absolute socks off for the entire 2 years to get those kinds of grades. But you will get all the support that you need from your teachers. I'm saying again, I'm so sorry. Anyway, I always expect my students to be willing to turn up for extra sessions to help them do even better. So I often run Wednesday period 5 sessions or do sessions at lunch when lunch is a bit longer than 40 minutes. I don't know what's going to happen next year. So anyway, I always am prepared to offer my time for students to help them achieve the very best that they can achieve. And when you apply to some universities, you're going to need very high grades for some courses and some universities. So we want to make sure our students are able to do that if that's what they want to achieve. So just also to look at the issues to whether RS is an academic subject, because this is something you might need to consider depending on what you're thinking of going on to do at university, because some universities are fussy about what subjects, what A-level subjects the people who apply to their university have chosen to do, because some universities perceive some subjects as easier than others, and therefore they don't view them as suitable preparation for their particular university. But I can tell you hand on heart that this has never ever in my, more than 20 years in this school been a problem for an RS student. They've always been found RS as actually an advantage when they come to apply to university. A couple of years back, we had one upper sixth student go to Oxford and one go to Cambridge. And the other universities who perceive themselves anyway as the top universities in the country, the Russell Group universities, they also state in all their literature that religious studies A-level is viewed as equal to the facilitating subjects. So it will never be a problem for you if you've done RS, but it is something to consider. You can look up on university websites what subjects they do and don't accept if you're worried about that for any of your choices. So, moving on to what you will actually be studying in RS. Well, it is very, very different from what you've done lower down the school, either at GCSE or if you've only done core RE so far. I'm saying again, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. So you will study some ethical theories with me, things that you may never even have heard of so far. Things like utilitarianism, which is a theory which says you should always choose the moral action which will bring the greatest happiness to the greatest number of people. So we try and break that down and make it accessible for the students. So, for example, this is a theory developed by a man called Jeremy Bentham, and he says that every time you make a moral decision, you should consider 7 aspects of happiness and measure it almost like a mathematical sum. So, for example, I expect my students to eat a very small Mars bar. Obviously, they're not good for you folks in a lesson. And while you eat the Mars bar, you will consider the intensity of your pleasure when eating the Mars bar, the duration of your pleasure when eating Mars bar, and all the other factors you have to consider. Don't worry, if you're a vegan, you will have something else. So that's utilitarianism, and that is also my very good excuse why RS students have always chosen to have a biscuit rota, because this illustrates what utilitarianism is all about. So one student each week, and me when it's my turn, will have to go to the effort of getting to a shop and buying some biscuits for the rest of the class, or making some if you prefer. That would be excellent. And when you do that, obviously you might go through a bit of pain and lack of pleasure, because it's your money you're spending, it's your time you're wasting. But then you'll make the other 12 students, or however many we have in the class that year, you'll be making them happy when they get to eat your Mars bar during the lesson, not Mars bar, biscuits during the lesson. So that, according to Jeremy Bentham, would therefore be a morally good thing that you have done by causing the greatest happiness for the greatest number. So that's utilitarianism, and we would apply that theory to lots of different moral issues. Situation ethics is another theory we study that looks at making moral choices which would bring the most loving consequences, and we have to apply that to practical ethics issues of homosexual relationships and polyamorous relationships. If you don't know what those are, you can look those up on Google later. And utilitarianism, going back to the previous theory, we apply that, for example, to medical experiments. So we've discussed this year whether it would have been right to use, for example, apes, if that helped you discover a vaccine for COVID-19, for example. Would that have been a morally right thing to do to cause suffering to those animals? Another theory we look at is natural law, which is a theory which Catholic moral ethics is based upon. And that theory we have to apply to issues of abortion and euthanasia. So I think this will illustrate to you how this is different from GCSE, for example. At GCSE, you might have used Bible passages or just Christian teachings, whereas at A-level, you're more applying this theory of natural law to issues of abortion and euthanasia. So it's very, very different. You'll be looking at a lot more in depth, and obviously at a higher academic level. So I've given you some ideas of what natural law says about abortion in my pictures and information on the slide. I haven't been reading out the information because I'm sure you're all capable of reading for yourselves. So we also, when we do the modern version of natural law by a man called John Finnis, we have to apply his theory to immigration, and look at whether it's morally right for a country to welcome immigrants into their country. And also we look at applying that theory to capital punishment in particular. And in the past, but obviously not at the moment because of COVID, but we have taken students to the Crown Courts in Liverpool, and I've sat through many different, usually murder trials. We only go for a day, obviously, with students over the years, and I've just put a couple of examples on the screen of cases that we got to experience some of that trial. So you can see why, if you're applying to do a law degree and you can say you've actually been to a Crown Court and been sitting there for a case like that, that would be something to write about on your UCAS application, maybe. So that's the ethics part of the course. The second part of the course is the philosophy course. In Crystleton, you won't have done a great deal of philosophy up till now, so maybe it's hard for you to picture what this would mean. The closest you've done for it in Crystleton would be in Year 9, where you were looking, if you remember, at different arguments for and against the existence of God. For example, you looked, if you remember, at the cosmological argument by St. Thomas Aquinas, which is where Aquinas would have argued that God was the first cause who caused the cause of the cause of the cause of maybe the Big Bang, which caused the universe. And for that reason, God must exist in order to have started everything off. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So we look at arguments like that for the existence of God and the counter arguments from atheists. Also, as part of philosophy, we have a topic on the problem of evil. So with COVID-19 at the moment, this could be something we discuss. It's going to be the next topic I look at with my second but next topic with my lower sixth this year. We could discuss if God supposedly so powerful and so loving. Why did he allow COVID-19? Why would he allow all these innocent deaths all over the world? And other natural evils like the Boxing Day tsunami, or moral evil like 9/11. Why would such a powerful God, who supposedly loves us, allow these things to happen? Why wouldn't he have used his power to stop them, or to find a cure, or whatever? So surely this disproves the existence of God. This is proof that God does not exist. So that's an issue that we would be looking at. Another scholar that we would study who argues that God does not exist is Freud. So if you do psychology, that would be a scholar that you would also look at in your psychology course. And in RS, you'd be looking at his particular views on religion. Freud has a very interesting theory as to why people believe in God. That we would study. He essentially concludes that we've just invented him in our heads. He's a product of the human mind. God is just an illusion. So we look at that theory. And I thought this was a good opportunity to just mention other subjects that RS goes well with. There are other topics on the course where we look at famous people from psychology, people like Jung, and Skinner, Pavlov's dogs, that experiment, all those kinds of things come up in RS as well. So that's a nice link if you do psychology as an A-level. But in actual fact, over the years, we've had students do almost any combination under the sun. And it's always, they've always found that RS complements what they do in their other subjects in some way, or it's a beautiful contrast. So, for example, if you're going on to something scientific, it's sometimes nice to do an essay subject where you're looking at maybe the morality of stuff rather than just straight science. And in fact, actually, our scientists have a bit of an advantage when we look at topics, for example, about where the universe came from. Because I've had physics students, for example, come up with quantum physics or quantum mechanics kinds of arguments in their A-level essays. Those what they write is well above my head sometimes, but it's a very nice link in with the scientific aspects of our course as well. But it's not necessary. Don't worry if your science isn't your thing. Also, that's not a problem. That is not like a massive aspect of the RS course. It's just a useful thing to be able to bring in if that's a subject you also study. So that's the philosophy. The last component of the course is Christianity. I'm going to maybe whiz through this a bit more because I don't teach this. I teach the philosophy and ethics. So it's Miss Binion and Mrs. Lister who are the experts on the Christianity component. But they look at some things a bit similar to me, for example, whether science has disproved the existence of God. Students have to look at the writings of Richard Dawkins, a very famous atheist, and his book, The God Delusion. And we look at a reply from someone who does believe in God, whose book is called The Dawkins Delusion, in retaliation. So that's the Christianity paper. There's also, for example, issues to do with feminist theology there. Whether God is actually maybe a woman, or just not a man. So lots of interesting topics in the Christianity paper as well. But I think I need to get a move on with telling you what's actually how the course is going to be examined. So at the end, you'll be doing these 3 2-hour papers, and it's just essays. So if I have to say, if you hate essay, if you couldn't stand the thought of writing lots of essays in the next 2 years, it's maybe not the course for you, because it is just an essay based subject for examination purposes. So we will have to develop those skills. And you will need at least a grade 5 in English GCSE to cope with the demands of the course. Otherwise, you'd probably find it too difficult and challenging, and you wouldn't enjoy it. And similarly, if you've done RS GCSE, we ask for at least a 5. But I have to say at this point, please don't worry if you don't do RS GCSE. It's not a problem. The picture I showed you early on in the PowerPoint of students out celebrating on our curry night. There's a student there, for example, I can remember now, called Will, who didn't do RS GCSE. He had a target grade of only a C, but he got an A in RS. Just because he worked really hard and really enjoyed it. So it's not at all a problem if you've not done the GCSE course. I've put an example of an exam question at the moment just to show you the kind of question you might get. So what kind of things would you be doing in the lessons? Well, obviously we try and make them as interesting as possible. The picture bottom left is of the room I normally teach in, not during COVID, but normally I'd be in the nice seminar room where we're around an oval table and it's feels a bit more grown up. But we would do as many fun activities as we can. That picture has a move cube being thrown across the room, which is something I use at times for retrieval questions. Also, we do as much discussion as possible every lesson. That's a real thing in my lessons. I love also using video clips. So, for example, Monty Python is a favourite of mine, which can illustrate quite a few things on the course. Some things are obvious. I'm not going to go through all of those. Obviously, you develop knowledge and understanding of all the different topics. But particularly a focus of the course is developing your evaluation and analysis skills. And a lot of subjects at university, analysis is a big thing where you have to present your opinion about something and back it up with reasoned argument. That's very much a focus of this course. And in fact, I remember meeting up on a reunion a year or so after they'd finished the course with some students, and one of whom was a young lady who'd gone to Cambridge to do an essay-based subject, and she said it was having done RS as an A-level that taught her how to write essays for Cambridge. So we'll definitely help you with that and developing those skills. The top left is a picture of two of my students who sent me this picture proudly to prove that they were revising to me from my revision guide that I do these colour-coded revision guides on all the different topics, and they are pretending, I think, to revise on a trip to Alton Towers there. So that's Sophie and Nathan. Thank you for that, guys. So that's what we will be doing in the lessons. So you'll be extremely glad to hear this is my last slide. Should you do RS? A big choice for you to make. Please think carefully and try and make the right choice. There were, I think, at least 3 students this year, and this happens every year, who came to me after the course had been going for a few weeks, and they said, "Miss, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. Please, can I switch to RS?" And I had to say, I'm really sorry, but it's too late, because they'd missed too much. So obviously, if you realise you've made a mistake in the first week or so, that's fine. But we do have students who choose things maybe not for the best reasons, and then they hear about how much fun their friends are having in RS, and they want to change. It's not always possible. So the best thing to do is to get your choices right first time round. And my number one piece of advice to you is choose subjects you are going to enjoy. If the things I've been talking about don't sound remotely interesting to you, don't do RS. But you whatever you choose, think carefully, folks. You do not want to be stuck doing 10 hours a week in 10 lessons a fortnight in a subject that you don't enjoy, that you find boring. Because that would just be a nightmare over 2 years, wouldn't it? And you won't do well in the exams in the end if that's been the case in a subject. So I think, well, I know I'm biased. I know I'm biased. I love my subject. I love teaching it at A-level, and I think it's the most interesting and fun A-level you could possibly choose. And the most relevant to so many things. But I am biased, so I highly recommend that you ask students who currently study the subject, or if you know people in your family who've done it in the past. I'm confident, whoever you ask, that you will get a good report of why they enjoy RS. I know it's more difficult at the moment maybe to do that, but I think one of the things that proves it's a really good subject to do is we almost always get the younger brothers and sisters of students choose to do our subject because they know from their older siblings how much fun it is. So I will obviously normally during an open evening, I would have the opportunity to have students there with me, and I normally keep, instead of listening to me drone on, so sorry that you've had to do that for this length of time, I would normally keep asking them questions and as we went along, and I've not been able to do that, mainly because my knowledge of this technology is not good enough to do that for you, and I'm so sorry. But I will make sure that there's some handouts available that you can get hold of, that have some comments from students, so you get the student viewpoint as well. And if you see a student coming out of an A-level lesson, do talk to them, do ask them. They're all lovely. None of them would mind if you collared them and said, "Oh, I'm thinking of doing RS. What's it really like?" I think that's a really, really good thing to do in all your subjects, to check what the subject's really like, because your teachers are all biased, aren't they? They all want you to choose their subjects, obviously. So thank you so much for listening. I hope I have covered everything that you need to know. If not, feel free, if you're at Crystalton, to ask Mrs. Lister, Miss Binion, or myself at any point in the corridor. Just grab us and ask us anything you want to know that I've not covered. And if you don't go to Crystalton, obviously feel free to email me, and I'll try and help with anything that I've not covered. And I'm so sorry that I've gone on for so long. And also, so sorry that I keep saying and apologising for it. I am hopeless, utterly hopeless, and I apologise. Good luck with your choices, folks. Thank you for listening. Bye.